Sounds True presents Mantra, Sacred Words of Power, with author, spiritual teacher, and priest in the Vedic tradition for nearly 25 years, Thomas Ashley-Farrand. And now, Session 1, The Origins of Mantra.
We have a bias in modern spirituality that says that light is the highest signpost of spirituality and divinity even. We have lots of evidence to support this conclusion. We have the light surrounding the Christ. We have the nimbus, the halo surrounding the saints. There's light that surrounds the priests who carry and work with the Ark of the Covenant in Judaism. We see the Buddha, who has a halo. Many of us pray for light on the path, and we seek a goal which we call enlightenment. So we're pretty clear that light must be the beginning, the middle, and the end of our journey. But I suggest to you that that's not really the case. That sound is rather the beginning and the highest in terms of divinity, more than light. I know it's an outrageous statement, but let me present some evidence to support that. In the Bible, in the Old Testament again, God did various things before he created light. I suggest that if light was the highest spiritual quality, he would have created that first, but he didn't. In the New Testament Gospel of John, it states, "In the beginning was the Word." Now, light was not the beginning. Rather, it was sound in the form of divine speech. Neither in the Old Testament nor the New Testament do we find a verse such as, "And God made light to shine." Rather, God creates the phenomenon of light by speaking it. The primary mechanism of creation is sound. And God said, "Let there be light." The Christian portion of the Bible was written a couple of thousand years ago, in the Old Testament before that. But the Saptama Brahma from the Far East was written a couple of thousand years before even that, and maybe much older. I quote from Sir John Woodruff's Garland of Letters that has a translation of a portion of that scripture. "In the beginning was God with power through speech. God said, 'May I be many, may I be propagated.' And by his will expressed through subtle speech, he united himself with that speech and became pregnant. Prajapati and Saraswati were then created." This statement sure sounds to me astonishingly like the Gospel of John. In other places in the Far East, in Chinese Buddhism, there is a figure called Kuan Yin. Now, she's referred to as the divine voice, which has called forth the elusive form of this universe. The Vedas, the world's oldest recorded scriptures, speak of the divine sound current, Shabda Brahma, which permeates and has created all. Modern teachers also speak of the power of spiritual sound. Sufi mystic master Hazrat Inayat Khan has written, "Divine sound is the cause of all manifestation. The knower of the mystery of sound knows the mystery of this whole universe." In the early part of the 20th century, there's a movement which I've called modern esotericism. It includes such people as H.P. Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, Rudolf Steiner, Helena and Nicholas Roerich, and others. Here is a quote from The Secret Doctrine written by H.P. Blavatsky, who also founded the Theosophical Society. "Sound is such a tremendous occult power. It is such a stupendous force that the electricity generated by 1,000,000 Niagaras could never counteract even the smallest potentiality when directed by proper knowledge." In the East, they describe the process of creation in these steps. First, we have God, whatever that is, as being. And then from being comes mind. And then from mind springs desire. And to bring desire to manifestation comes the will. And from the will comes the word. the ineffable word. And from the word comes everything else. So here we are with the creative power of sound, and we can see how it has created the universe and how it is all pervading. But what is that to you and me? How can we use sound to affect the issues in our life? What is the power of this sound and how does it work? Well, the one I'm familiar with, among several ways, is Sanskrit mantra. Now, Sanskrit is an ancient tongue. We can trace it back 7,000 to 8,000 years, and then we lose track of it in the mists of time. It was widely used before the advent of writing, so it is part of an oral tradition, and it is the language of the chakras. And as we'll get into a little bit later in this course, it is an energy-based language. Its very essence is to work with the building blocks of creation through sound that are reproduced in you and me. The way we work with this Sanskrit language, this language of the chakras, is through Sanskrit mantras. Now, mantras are spiritual formulas. They are sounds put together in a particular way, one might say even a scientific way, to produce specific kinds of results. And so powerful are these sound formulas called mantras that they were hidden for many thousands of years. They were hidden and taught only within the Brahmin priesthood. And then later they started to leak out from the priesthood into the outside secular world. And this was, spiritually speaking, not a good thing. And as we'll talk about later, one of the tasks of the Buddha was to stop this movement, which he did brilliantly. But even with this interesting background, understanding that Sanskrit mantras are tools for power and tools of power, tools of the spoken word, language of the chakras that you and I can use, how can we use them? What will they do for us? Well, all of us have had job issues from time to time. Sanskrit mantras can help you with whatever problems you may have in your job, or its cousin, income. We all from time to time have had little bumps in our relationship. We'd like to be able to make it better, to optimize our relationship. Maybe it's something in the other person. Maybe it's something in us. Maybe we don't know. There are Sanskrit mantras that will help you with this. Health issues are something we all have. There are formulas that you can use that will help you promote health in ways that are frankly astonishing. And later in this course, I'll tell you some stories of people who used mantras for specific problems and the results they had, sometimes dramatic results. Another things that I call karmic speed bumps as we go through the parking lot of life, the things that come out of nowhere that present themselves and you go, what am I going to do about this? There are mantras for those kinds of situations as well. Ultimately, the purpose of Sanskrit mantra is spiritual. We can use it to solve worldly problems, we can use it for health issues, but what they are really about are spiritual evolution. We hear about meditation, it's part of the common lexicon these days. And one form of meditation, and among many forms, is mantra meditation. And that is the primary kind of meditation that we'll be talking about in this course. How you can take specific Sanskrit formulas and move yourself along spiritually, evolve towards a goal which is called mukti or liberation, where you will no longer have to return to this earthly school. So while we'll be presenting mantras for you that will help you in the problems that you encounter, we also want you to know that the final objective is really spiritual. So now you've had a taste of how the Sanskrit language sounds and how it sounded those many thousands of years ago from those seers sitting under the trees with their eyes closed. We're pronouncing the mantras in the same way and the hymns in the same way. You could probably feel the power of it. It is working directly on your chakras. Over the years, I've had people say to me, well, can't I say the same kinds of things in English and have the same kinds of effects? Well, there are things called affirmations that we say in English But affirmations are quite different than Sanskrit mantras. Affirmations work more on the subconscious mind in the sense of beginning to program and condition those parts of ourselves that may need positive reinforcement. But Sanskrit is about energy. It works directly on the chakras. And it is an energy-based language rather than a meaning-based language. So the experience of working with Sanskrit mantra will be dislodging things that are stored in your legs and your arms, various thoughts and emotions that may be stored throughout the body. And by the action of the Sanskrit will actually dislodge them and remove them. They will be pulled back into the spine and ejected, just as surely as a jet plane pilot can eject himself from his plane by pushing a button. Sanskrit mantra is a button we can use to eject streams of negativity that we no longer wish to carry about. The two languages that are energy-based rather than meaning-based, in my experience, are Sanskrit and Hebrew. The Kabbalah is also a powerful, codified system of working with energy through sound. Having acknowledged that, I can't talk much about it. It's not my area of expertise. But Sanskrit, I can talk about. The power of mantra will be expressed exclusively in Sanskrit, and there will be words for which there is no English translation, because the Sanskrit word is about energy and not about meaning. The best place to start for that is seed mantras, because seed mantras have no translation at all into English. They are short, usually one, sometimes two-syllabled words that are about certain kinds of energy. And we're going to go through some of the seed mantras, which are then used to build longer mantras. Before we get into seed sounds, I would be remiss if I didn't explain what mantra means insofar as it's translatable. Manas is the Sanskrit word for mind, and many scholars say that the tra part comes from the word try, which means to free from. So at its essence, mantra is a tool used by the mind to free one from the mind. When you say a mantra, you begin a vibration that begins to permeate the body and permeate the cells. And as we know, all kinds of thoughts are constantly riding in and through our mind, our psycho-spiritual mechanism. And the power of the mantra begins to absorb all of those until it becomes the one great wave of vibration. So the way mantras work is to help you arrive at a state of tranquility, where your mind is silent from all of the subconscious waves of thoughts and ideas that are sweeping through it all the time. And when the mind is quiet, it can really concentrate and it can really think. So the mind then can achieve a state that we call concentration, where you can think on one thing without wandering. Have you ever sat and tried to just think about one thing? You'll sit there and then you'll think, let's see, what am I going to have for dinner later? Or, boy, that was a great movie we saw. Oh, yes, I'm thinking about X. I'm thinking about Y. And, oh, my, I got to scratch my leg over here. The mind does not stay one-pointed. If you sit and observe your own mind, it's all over the place. Well, mantra can help bring the mind to a state of one-pointedness. The basic building blocks of mantras are seed sounds. And just as the name implies, it contains within it the seed or the germ of a particular kind of power. Just as we know that an entire oak tree is contained within an acorn, in principle, ready to sprout and grow. Similarly, seed sounds contain an entire principle ready to sprout and grow within as we say the mantra. So that's why we call them seed sounds. And by saying them, we tend them, we water them, we give them sunlight, and those principles grow within us. All right, what are they? Let's take the first one as abundance. Now, abundance means many things to many different kinds of people. We tend to think of it as prosperity. We want more means to support our family, to live the kind of lifestyle we want. So we think that abundance is prosperity. But in fact, abundance can mean many different kinds of things. In an agrarian economy, abundance was having a large enough family to be able to tend the crops. If you are a person living alone, abundance is having friends and acquaintance. It can be enough food to eat. So the seed sound for abundance includes all of these kinds of abundance. I'll chant it for you 3 times. Shreem, Shreem, Shreem. Simple, isn't it? Shreem.
Om Klim Shreem Vrizi Namaha. 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 Klim Shrim Brizi Namaha. Om 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 Klim Shrim